right, welcome back to Cosmic Lion Radio. We are here for a very, very special edition, a video version, and we've got the creative team behind Ghost Agents Outlaw Town, the amazing new book, I guess by Rocko Jerome, Ken Landgraf, and Christian J. Meesimo. And guys, just welcome. I'm so excited. It was published by somebody named Cosmic Lion Productions. They sound a little derivative, but I think what they do is pretty cool. Welcome, everyone. Let's start with Rocko and tell us a little bit about the crew you've gathered here today and the amazing Ken Landgraf.
It's a really big deal for us. Ghost Agents has been running for about 3 years at this point. I believe 3 years, right here in the month of October. We launched in 2021, and I'm very pleased to now have Ken Landgraf working and doing well. He's already done it, the first ever full story for Ghost Agents in terms of a full feature-length comic book where the full story is 30 pages instead of just the smaller short stories that we've done in other books. The idea that I always tell people about Ghost Agents is that it's designed to help independent artists get paid and seen, sometimes for the first time. That's not the case with Ken. Ken is obviously a hand that's been around for many, many years. He was in the first comic book that I ever bought off a spinner rack, in which Wolverine and Hercules get into a bar fight over a woman, and I never really looked back after buying that when I was 7 or 8 years old. So it's a great pleasure for me to be working with Ken Landgraf, the original comic Outlaw. I think that his way of doing things and his general style works very well with what Ghost Agents has already established itself is over the years in several books, and I'm very glad to be able to work with him today. And today is mostly about him. We want to talk about what he's about, what this project means to him, and what we're doing here that makes Ghost Agents Outlaw Town, as well as Ghost Agents Mind Melt, the book that we're currently kickstarting, different than anything he's ever done before.
Amazing, dude. Yeah, absolutely agree with everything you said. So Ken, tell us, I don't know, man, tell us a little bit about working on Ghost Agents and just how the experiences has been working with Rocko. Let's start with Rocko first.
Well, first of all, Rocko works the Marvel way. He works like Stan Lee, comes up with a plot, and it has a beginning and an end, and he describes certain key scenes. So what I do is I'm constantly thinking about how can I make this exciting, or what kind of camera shots can I use to get to these points. And he also gives me like total freedom, which is unusual because I can draw anything basically I want. Nobody's corrected any of my figures. Nobody said, oh, I don't like that camera shot you're using. And I pretty much have a go ahead to do whatever the heck I want, which is great.
It's very true. I want to quickly add, I don't work Marvel Method with everybody, Ken. I think Meesimo can attest to this, and since Marvel Method is kind of a dirty word these days, dirty phrase, I don't always do what I did with Ken on this, which is I gave him for Outlaw Town a 20-page fight scene to do with as he wished, and Mind Melt has a 20-page psychedelic scene. So I do like to think that I grant artists a lot of leeway to do whatever they want to do within the confines of the concept. But Ken, you're very special in that you get the Marvel method. Nobody else does.
That's great. I can also work the DC way, but that's not as much fun because the writer has to really write down every single thing. The guy goes through the tavern door, and then there's 6 guys sitting at the table. That's fine too, because I can interpret that any way I want.
Nah, I didn't want to do that to you. I think I can tell when I look at a page by any given artist or most artists and be able to tell how much the writer tried to exert some level of control beyond what I think makes sense for them to be doing. And I feel like comics are an artist medium. The artist is the main point. The way that I always think about this is that I'm the writer and producer of Ghost Agents. The artist is the director, the cinematographer, every special effect, every actor, central casting, special effects. I may have said that already. But basically, it's once it goes into the dominion of the artist, that's where the artists make the difference. So Ken, let's talk a little bit about what your process is like. Eli once described your pages as being like being able to get this magical pile of crunchy paper in your possession once your pages come out. I now own the pages to Mind Melt, the book that we're currently kickstarting. Really something to comprehend and to behold. What goes into your process? I know there's a lot of cutting and pasting and a lot of interesting things happening.
That's what the actual physical work. The first thing is to think about what are you going to draw on the page. So I might look through comics, different artists. Gil Kane even told me one time, he said, never just draw from your head. Look at Russ Heath, Frank Frazetta. Look at these artists and see what you can adopt and take from them and learn from them. So I'm always thinking in those terms of learning, because that's all I really care about, improving and keep on learning. And the first thing to do is the layout. So what I usually do is something called dynamic symmetry, which Gil Kane told me about, which is you're taking a line and crossing it and then dissecting it in the middle and then doing a diagonal, and you fit these images into those forms. Gil Kane did that all the time, so did John Buscema. That's the trick to dynamic panels. And so the first thing I'll do is I'll do a layout page so I know what I'm going to draw. The drawing is actually the fun part. The layout is the thinking. So I put pretty much effort into what are the figure poses on a page. And since this took place in a Western town, I kept on thinking, how can I use foreground elements? That meant shooting through wagon wheels, shooting through anything that might be that I can use as a field of depth. So I do that a lot in the panels.
Yeah, a lot of very interesting elements at play in all of your pages. I actually have a bunch of your layouts that you sent me, but actually came in a plastic bag. This is never very far from my hand. This is all very interesting to look at, especially once the pages are in. To be able to look at these pages as they're printed on newsprint and colored by Meesimo, what is your feeling about these, Ken? Does this strike you as being unique in your body of work?
I think Meesimo is some kind of genius. I mean, to put it mildly, what the heck's this guy doing? It's not even coloring. He's got like that figure, that girl there, and I'm sure I put shading on it, but he created a 3D film in there by making those guys red. And there's all sorts of stuff going on here. It almost looks like it's realistic. I like what he did up here, like that girl's mouth where she's talking. It has like a pop art look to it.
Yeah, which I love that, of course.
Which is amazing. And then,
over my shoulder.
I mean, who would color like one thing, one color, and then use shading on it? Like he did that scene with the inn or tavern, and only the yellow windows were showing through. And this stuff becomes totally psychedelic. I told him about a movie called The Green Slime, which looks like he did it. Oh my God. I mean, it's got this like super crazy coloring in it. And it was made in Italy. So you got these Italian guys that know how to really change color. Like Mero Bava used to do that. He'd arrange things and color things a certain way so they'd pop out. And all this psychedelic stuff is going on here.
Yeah, I don't like to give a lot of direction with these types of things. I like to just think that I sort of nudge things along sometimes. And the thing that I remember that I told Meesimo, and Meesimo will be interested to hear what your memory of this is, but I said, whatever you do, just don't do a conventional coloring job.
He didn't do a
conventional job.
I took that to heart.
He's like reinventing coloring. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah. What's it like to color these pages, Meesimo?
I'm just trying to hold on for dear life. Like, they're so dynamic and exciting. It's trying to add the bombastic, but still not let it get too busy. Keep the psychedelics, but not have every page be that crazy. So it kind of ebbs and flows as far as how wild it gets. But definitely
how do you understand all those lightings on the figures? That's unusual. That's not coloring, that's drawing. Like how it goes light to dark. It's 3-dimensional.
But following your lead, taking off from the lighting and shading that you have laid down.
Meesimo is beyond being a colorist. He is a tremendous artist in his own right. Yes. He works tremendously quickly. He's a caricature artist, literally at fairs and that sort of thing, and is always sort of the fastest gun in the West as it stands whenever it comes to any sort of a project that he's working on. He's very quick and he's very adept at what he does.
Well,
I
that's
feel like
creativity.
I'm looking at these pages. They're sorry, kind of step on what you're saying there. I feel like looking at these pages. They're unique in your body of work. Both of the bodies of work of both you guys, Ken and Meesimo as well. And I just love them. I think that the energy just pops off the pages, and I never get tired of looking at these. Ken, how do you feel about it? What as these books are coming out? When you see the work come back colored, did you have any sort of a trepidation about what that might turn out like?
No, because usually when a colorist colors something, I don't want to be insulting to the past, but whenever something was colored in the 1970s at DC, it was kind of always ugly coloring. There was nothing was popping out. Like they colored like a Nazi tank, for instance, in a Sergeant Rock comic. They colored purple.
Oh, well, I mean, that can be cool if you do it right.
It could be cool, but it's not.
Yeah, not at DC. I wouldn't.
And it's flat coloring. It's flat, very flat. It has no
those
dimension.
are words. That's a word that we don't like.
No, we don't like that word. The only ones that would color good would be colored good was Marie Severard. She colored the EC comics because she knew how to draw.
Right.
So she would look at Wally Wood's lighting effect and make sure it was there.
Yeah, similar to Meesimo. He knows how to draw. He knows what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
so he adds another layer of like a creative outlook, another layer of art. It's not just color or.
That's why it looks perfect. It looks perfect because my storytelling is right on. The writing is right on, and the coloring is right on. I mean, what are you going to say about that? It's like a masterpiece.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm very, very proud of this. I'm tickled pink to be involved in any capacity. It's interesting too because something that's very unique to the way that we work with you, Ken, is that when the pages come in, I sort of have to figure out what the page order is, and it's interesting to work on that Marvel method.
I forgot about that actually, because I kind of just drew them, and they could be taken in any sequence that the writer wanted to put it in.
Yeah, especially
that disco job we just did.
You're right. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, as I sat down with those pages,
like an editing problem.
Well, I wouldn't call it a problem.
Well, you got to solve it.
It's a query.
Puzzle.
It's a good problem to have. We'll put it that way. It's fun to be able to go through the pages and say, okay, well, then this happens here, and then to write it from there. I would have to say, now having worked the Marvel method, I can see where the writer and or editor definitely has a unique challenge in making it all into a cohesive story. But I also see how much that really does put the impetus on the writer, or on the artist as the primary storyteller, because it's all you. I mean,
but it forces the writer to be super creative because there weren't words written down. There were only scenes described. I think that's a great way to work.
Yeah, it's an interesting collaborative process. Yeah, everybody's got to be game, though. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be able to roll with it. I think that's sort of like the main spirit of both of these books, is that it's all about just sort of rolling with it, right? Like, figuring out a way, and coming at it with a creative spirit, and you end up with
I want to comment also on Eli's lettering here. That's really, it looks like a psychedelic 1960s San Francisco rock poster.
Yeah, isn't that good?
And that's cool.
That's my whole oeuvre right there. That's everything.
Superimposed it over the picture. It's incredible.
Yeah, he did a great job with that. We looked very closely at the recently released New York City Outlaws book and did our best to replicate the feeling of that for the captions and the word balloons. That's a cool book. I was very excited that came out. I've been contemplating buying those individual issues for very steep amounts of money for a long time before that book actually came out. So, Floating World, here's to you guys. Here's a Pepsi for you guys.
Ken, what was the process like making that book? And was it also similar to how you felt on Ghost Agents, or was there any differences or similarities that you noticed?
You're talking about the New York City Outlaws?
Yeah, and I mean back then. I don't mean like putting together the new collection.
Yeah, your process changed, I guess. Basically.
No, it hasn't changed.
I didn't imagine.
I want to put Zipatone on everything.
Yeah.
Ever since I saw Wally Wood's work when I was a kid, I saw a Mad magazine. I couldn't figure out what those dots were.
Yeah.
And Wally Wood was crazy with the lighting effects.
We love those dots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We love those dots. And I understand you don't use it anymore, but the This Is Elvis record, the vinyl record.
I do use it still.
You do? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I know last time you had said the Wally Wood piece was something.
Well, I use a lot of different things, and I change my mind just like anybody would. I don't follow anything, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. As cool as it is that she used something that belonged to Woody, the idea that you're actually also using that. This Is Elvis. Actually, I'm an Elvis freak. I don't own that album. There's nothing unique to that album that's not anything else, as you know. So, but I want to buy a copy of that and frame it just because of the relevance to you, and also because I love Zipatone, and that thing is loaded with it. So.
Also, you were quite the historian. I remember I brought that thing up about Billy Miller, and you knew what Kicks magazine.
Yeah.
How would you know that? The biggest music historians don't know about that magazine.
Right there. Boom.
Yeah.
Look at that. Escarita. Wow. Funny thing about this, Escarita right here, this gentleman, Little Richard stole everything from this guy called Escarita.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
He spent the last 30 years of his life talking about how he was the originator and the architect of rock and roll, when in fact Escarita was the real Little Richard. Look that up. Yeah, no, Kicks magazine. I have all the copies I have are in this thing.
Wow.
Ken Motti.
That was very intelligent that you were even into something like that, because that's from so obscure.
I love rock and roll. I love it more than anything.
Most people go only as far as Rolling Stone, and that's pretty not very much in depth.
No way. Kicks. I don't know. I don't know if you still own any copies of Kicks, but I got to get out a magnifying glass to look at it because the print is so small.
There's so much information is in there and pasted articles.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah.
I do just want to point out too that we have a Kickstarter going right now for an all new Ghost Agents. That is also by Ken and also by the full team here. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yep. Easiest way to get there. I will probably have a link on this. I haven't used it today. Okay. Yeah, it's more of the same. It's like a night at the opera, day at the races. You know, you do something and it goes well enough that you go ahead and sort of make maybe sort of a spiritual sequel. The plot, as it were, of Outlaw Town is that Donna and Max Almond go to the Hellspawn Ranch in Hollywood. Draw your own conclusions about that if you know your Manson family history, and battle it out with some mutants. And then the idea of this one is that Donna goes to Studio 54 and inadvertently snorts angel dust and hallucinates. That was about all the direction I gave Ken.
That's where the color takes a lot of inspiration as well.
So yeah, if you like one, you'll like the other. It's one of those deals. But yeah, and I think that probably, well, I don't want to get into that. I was going to start talking about what we'll do with them down the road. But for these purposes, the best thing you can do is go ahead. If you're a fan of Ken, if you like what we're doing here, if this looks intriguing to you, definitely back the Kickstarter, because I cannot guarantee to you that these two books will be available in this format again. So if you're a collector of Ken Landgraf stuff, don't sleep on this. Don't sleep on this, because you're going to want these. And these will, I think, will be collector's items that will stand the test of time. Freya the Slayer, a wrestler, a professional wrestler here in Louisville, and a personal friend of mine who happens to be a dead ringer for the Donna character. I kind of cast her as Donna, and she's on the cover of both of these books, and that's exciting too. But
Rocko, excuse me, when I saw the comics, I couldn't believe how close I came to drawing her to look like her. I didn't tend to do that.
I know.
It was weird. I thought, like, what did I do? Was I using her as the model? I must have somehow got that in my mind.
Yeah, you weren't. And you know, for 3 years we've been doing these Ghost Agents comics with this woman who looks amazingly like luckily Frey is cool, right? Because if she weren't, this would be a lot more difficult. But yeah, she's cool and she's game for this, and she's been a great ally to us and a great friend to Ghost Agents. So it's very, very cool. And of course, it harkens back to when you worked with Thor, Ken. What was that like?
Well, when I first met Thor, he came to Eva's restaurant, and he looked like a comic book character.
Right.
He had like a part of the uniform on, the Thor uniform with some spikes and stuff. And he had the band with him, so they were kind of scary looking. And one had an eye patch. And, they would come in and eat there all the time. So one day I said something to him. I told him I was a comic book artist. I just told him that. I always start conversations like that. And in fact, that's how you survive in New York. You had to make sure people knew what you did so you could get other work.
Okay. Yeah,
and then he wanted to do a comic book because he saw that I was publishing stuff, and I knew how to like take something, an idea, which was his plot again, and turn it into a physical comic book because I knew the printers, I knew the color separation, I knew how to put the lettering down. I could make that happen for anybody that wanted to do a comic.
Beautiful. Yeah, everything I did here, I wanted this to be a love letter to your career to date. I wanted it to be something that would fit in well with the entire New York City Outlaws era of your work, and to just feel like a bona fide, for real, not a tribute to, but an actual example of the types of outlaw comics of which you're most famous. And I hope we achieve that.
I think so.
I think so.
Right on, man. Right on.
Took 4 people to do it.
Well, it used to be one, I guess. And it's still, it's still mostly you. I mean, this is the Ken Landgraf show, and we're all just thrilled to be a part of it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Very good.
It's pretty amazing just the reactions that I've been getting when I show this book to people. And I think that, that's just a testament to seeing, and again, to toot the horn of Meesimo and the Meesimo Landgraf team up, everyone is taken aback and, has their breath taken by the colors that, they see. It really, when you think of Ken Landgraf work, you think of black and white, maybe a single color or a pop of color here and there. But really with the Meesimo thing, like we have something here that's never been done.
That's true.
A type of Landgraf expression, Meesimo expression that could only come through this particular team up. I actually kind of want to hear from Meesimo again. Just like how were you able to do this thing, and what were you thinking? How we keep talking like your art overlaid over Ken's art. So let's hear a little bit about your process, and then how you envisioned bringing out his art with yours.
The idea is to plus it, like never overshadow it. Let the awesome line work always shine through, like support that. But in doing so, give it, the volume, the lighting that he indicates with his, brushwork. So I'm coming in as like, just try to amplify the awesomeness that he's laying down, like the vocals are there. I'm just trying to turn up the knob a little bit. So it's a little bit more, wild and easy to hear.
And you did your color work digitally though, as well, right?
Yeah, but trying to give it a traditional feel. So like the first time we collabed I was super honored just to be able to lay some color down, and it's only gotten
that was Ghost Agents Apocalyptico where we first did that.
Yeah. And
still available.
Yeah, just trying to do it justice, basically.
Yeah, get your Apocalyptico. You can buy that with the other 2 books as part of a package deal at CosmicLion.com.
Treasury Trilogy.
I'm glad that you brought that up too, Meesimo. The funny thing about that was that Eli sort of, in a way, gifted me with the opportunity to have your stuff in that book, Ken. He mentioned one day, hey, why don't we get Landgraf to add some art to Apocalyptico, because Apocalyptico was reprinting originally the first 3 floppies that we put off in a more conventional form that to me like no longer exists Like that's kind of like George Lucas with the initial Star Wars. Like to me, those first floppy issues of Ghost Agents like don't even exist in my mind anymore. But anyway, we got Ken in, and we knew it would be special in that case to get somebody to color it. And out of the 50 plus artists that we've worked with on Ghost Agents, and that number is continuing to grow, we thought it would really be interesting to get someone that is adaptive as Meesimo to be the guy for that project. And we're talking about a lot of very adaptive cats. Like every artist that's been in Ghost Agents has been against the norm, if you will. It's always somebody who's able to push against the confines of what a comic book can be and is understood to be to this point. So we just sort of knew that Meesimo would be the guy for that operation, and we turned out to be very correct. But
I like to figure some things out that I call the roots to the fruits. So when we're working on something, and I try to connect, like, because I knew Rocko was, heavily inspired by you, Ken, and I knew that his first comic was that Wolverine book you did. And so I'm always like trying to connect that. Like I have this pinup behind me here that my favorite artist, Jim Lawson, did for my very first comic. And ever since that time, I'm like, it's just so cool to see this connection of the roots to the fruits. And so that's why I was just like, let's get Ken.
Let's make that happen. And then Ken, you had said you wanted to go ahead and do a script, and I was initially very intimidated by that. I was like, man, I don't know. Like, I'm not so sure. But then I saw that other people were doing books with you, Ken, and I was like, well, shit, if somebody else is doing it, if we have this opportunity, like I can't turn it down. We gotta make it happen. So I'm just I'm a very lucky boy. I've been able to be very fortunate with all this, and I just can't say thank you enough. But anybody out there listening or watching, hopefully you're doing both of those things. GhostAgents.net, the link that's attached to this. At the time that we're doing this, we have a single-digit number of days left for you to order the Kickstarter. You can get both books this way. This is the only way to get the one we've already published, Outlaw Town. You'll find that Mind Melt, as we were saying before, is more the same. So if you're a fan of Ken Landgraf and you're seeing this for the first time, here's your big opportunity. This will probably be the only time it's available in this exact format. So get with it.
That's true. And we didn't get to mention yet that it is on newsprint, and it is in like a golden age size comic.
Yeah,
so when you order it, or if you get one, you'll have to get a golden age size bag and board.
If you need a bag and board,
If
here's a Feral Star, a great book by John Burkett that's in a more standard size, so you can see that ours is a little bit bigger. I just don't like to do anything conventionally if I can help it. On that note, Ken, what do you got to say for yourself?
Well, I was very proud to do this, and I guess it all started with you and Eli coming up with these things. I didn't really realize that, and the whole thing was a major team effort, including the lettering. I when I first opened that book up, I thought, wow, this looks like some kind of 1970s exploitation poster or a psychedelic 60s San Francisco thing. It was more like an exploitation movie, though, because those are the coolest.
Right on, man. Let's do it. That's I love those.
And I did use I used a font called Squatront that is like the EC Comics.
EC type thing. That's what that was. That's why I liked it right off. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and I decided I wanted to make the every tail different, and I made the circles with a tool, but then hand drew every tail to make it different and interesting, so that it had like a handmade look. And I looked through New York City Outlaws and noticed that was the feel of it, and so I just wanted to make it seem like it was right out of that time period.
Very important touch. All these things lead to the overall vibe, and these things, if we do it right, and I think we did, it begins to feel like it's almost subliminal the way that some things hit within this, and your brain kind of knows, even if you sort of cohesively don't realize. Your brain can just sort of tell when it is an example of something and not just an imitation. So couldn't be happier. Eli makes all this possible in a lot of different ways. If it wasn't for him, I don't
He's the Stan Lee.
I mean,
I'm
again,
better than Stan Lee because I can actually draw.
By that I
there
mean
you
somebody
go.
that
Like,
gets the
you
thing
know, I mean,
started, carries
yeah.
it through.
I mean, I don't want to get into that too far, you know. I mean, the all anybody could ever do is just dig him up and yell at him at this point anyway. But you definitely need to have somebody. You definitely need to have an Eli in a project like this because it's just he's a safety net to these things. He just he's the sounding board. He's the person that makes it so that us doing this, we have somebody we can go to who can be the champion for what we're doing and make sure that we have some support. That somebody has your back. It makes all the difference. Because if you're on your own doing this kind of stuff, it's a lot trickier.
I'm honored to work with all of you, and you know, Cosmic Lion Productions is all the better to work with people like you guys, and I'm down to work with everyone here again in many different ways. Meesimo and I have been talking about projects. Rocko and I endlessly talk about projects, and
I have the next 3 Ghost Agents projects in track right now. There's people working on all of them, so glad to hear it.
And yeah, Ken, I'm excited to see you at IC3. That's going to be really good too. So if anyone's on the East Coast, or hell, if you're anywhere in the world and want to come see Ken next March, we'll be at IC3 with Meesimo.
It was great to have him at last year's show and to be able. One of my proudest moments in life was being able to have the pages that he did, the initial pages for Outlaw Town. We saw in person for the first time when he brought him with him to that event, and being able to, after hours, put them all out on the table at the hotel bar to look at them with a bunch of different artists, to look at the techniques involved and the sheer insanity of the approach to page layouts that Ken brought to the table. Yeah. One of my proudest moments in life. And I'll end on this. A few people there said, "Why would you bother to color these?" When I would say, "We're gonna have Meesimo color these," and they're like, "Why would you do that? You don't need to." And it's like, well, just wait and see.
I think we changed every one of those people's minds.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
that's amazing.
Always a great feeling. So,
yeah,
fantastic.
We were like golden gods that night. We
awesome.
Put these out.
It's
like.
Incredible. And while we were looking at them, there was actually a moment that the TV over the bar or over the table we were at, suddenly Elvis came on the screen and it was a black and white image from his early days. And I pointed and said, that's the guy. Zipatone is on this page. Awesome feeling. So, you know, check it out. I think if you love what we're doing, if you love what Ken Landgraf is about, I think this is just, I think you'll be very pleased with this.
Agreed. All right, y'all. So don't forget to check out the Kickstarter link, this giant link below. I know you can memorize it easily, or just go to ghostagents.net or search Ghost Agents on Kickstarter. Yep. So until next time, this has been Cosmic Lion Radio.